By 7 in the morning, the July sun is already on the tomato patch. You lift a leaf and find the edges chewed ragged. The cabbages look like green lace. Aphids are packed along the tender stems like pepper grains. That is the moment most gardeners reach for a spray bottle, even an organic one. It feels like doing something, but here is the part that took me too long to learn. That spray does not just hit the troublemakers. It can knock down the ladybugs, lacewings, tiny parasitic wasps, and ground beetles already working for you. The healthiest garden is not empty of insects. That is the puzzle. Why did the old farmer stop losing crops only after he quit trying to make his garden insect-free? The first thing to change is not the bottle on the shelf, but the way the whole garden is built before pests ever arrive. My name is Jack Merrill, and at 77, I have ruined enough seedlings to know this lesson was not born in a book. I used to think a clean garden was a controlled garden. Bare soil, neat rows, nothing moving unless I planted it there. That was the mistake. What I want to show you is 6 old-time ways to keep pests from getting settled in the first place. Not fancy, not expensive, soil that grows tougher plants, scents that confuse insects, flowers and shelter for the hunters, morning checks before trouble spreads, trap crops that take the first hit, and one last resort deterrent when the pressure gets heavy. Then, near the end, I will show you a simple transplant collar trick that can save young stems overnight. The goal is not 0 insects. The goal is a garden balanced enough that pests never get a head start, and the whole system starts in the one place most people never look when they find aphids on a leaf, 4 inches under the soil. Every spring, before I worry about bugs, I worry about the soil, not the top dust you see after a dry week. I mean the first 4 to 6 inches where the roots are trying to eat, breathe, and find water. That is where a weak plant is made, and that is where a strong plant is made too. Here is the old practice. Once a year, spread 2 to 3 inches of aged compost over the bed. Not fresh manure, aged compost. If you can get composted horse manure or cow manure mixed in, even better. Then work it down 4 to 6 inches deep, not like you are burying treasure, just folding life back into the ground. That compost feeds more than the plant. It feeds the little living crew in the soil. Fungi, bacteria, worms, all the small workers you never see. Penn State, Cornell, and plenty of soil folks have said the same basic thing in different words. Healthier soil biology is tied to stronger plants and better resilience. And resilience matters. A tomato in tired soil gets thirsty faster. A cabbage in hungry soil grows soft and slow. A bean fighting compacted dirt has no spare strength. Those plants send out the garden version of a dinner bell. Aphids find them. Beetles chew them. Disease moves in when the leaves stay weak. But a plant with steady food, better moisture, and room for roots does not panic so easily. It thickens up. It heals faster. It becomes harder work to attack. That is why I quit trying to make the garden insect-free. I started making the plants less worth bothering. But even a strong plant still has to be found by a pest first. And that is where the old gardens used smell like a kind of camouflage. So instead of planting tomatoes in a clean little army, I break up the signal. For every 3 or 4 tomato plants, I tuck in 1 basil. Not for decoration, for smell. Basil throws a sharp green scent into the air, and that scent muddies the trail for insects that are trying to find tomato leaves. Do the same around your brassicas: cabbage, kale, broccoli, cauliflower. Tuck dill or cilantro between them, not in one lonely herb patch across the yard. Put the smell right where the trouble starts. A pest does not fly over your garden reading labels. It follows cues: shape, color, heat, and a lot of the time, scent. A straight block of one crop is easy to read. To a hungry insect, that tidy row is like a bright sign saying, "Food here." Mixed planting turns that sign into static. Then come the French marigolds. I like them along borders and at bed ends, where they make a rough little fence of orange and yellow. Their smell helps above ground, but their roots do work below ground too. French marigolds release a compound called alpha-terthianol, and it is known for suppressing certain nematodes in the soil. That is the trick. You are not making a perfume garden. You are designing confusion before feeding begins. But confusing pests is only half the trick. The old farmer also made sure something hungry was waiting when pests did arrive, so the old farmer planted food for insects he did not want to kill. Not big flowers, tiny ones. Sweet alyssum along the bed edges, yarrow near the path. Fennel and dill left to bloom instead of pulling them the minute they got tall. Queen Anne's lace in a rough strip where the garden met the grass. That strip looked a little wild, but it worked like a diner. Parasitic wasps are small. Many are no bigger than a grain of rice. Their adults need nectar and pollen from shallow flowers because they cannot reach deep into big trumpet blooms. Hoverflies need the same thing. So do lacewings and ladybugs when there are not many pests around. That is the part most folks miss. If your garden has nothing for the good insects to eat in quiet weeks, then the aphids arrive. The cabbage worms hatch, and you are waiting for help that already flew off. A continuous bloom insectary strip keeps something open from spring into fall. Sweet alyssum starts early. Yarrow carries on. Dill, fennel, and Queen Anne's lace throw those flat, umbrella-shaped flowers that little predators can work all day. And when prey does show up, the crew is already there. One ladybug can eat up to 50 aphids in a day. One lacewing larva can eat around 200 aphids in its lifetime. Parasitic wasps do quieter work, laying eggs and caterpillars and aphids before you even notice damage. So a few aphids are not failure. They are bait. They are the reason your guards stay on the property. Still, even with predators on patrol, there is one job no ladybug can do as well as a gardener with a coffee cup at sunrise. That job is a morning walk, not a stroll past the beds with your hands in your pockets. I mean 15 to 20 minutes, before the sun gets hard, when the leaves are still cool and the damage is fresh. You look under leaves, you check the stems, you study the soft new growth, because that is where trouble likes to start. And you carry a cup of soapy water, a beetle here, a cluster of eggs there, a caterpillar folded along a stem, pretending to be part of the plant. Drop them in. Keep moving. That little handful matters because insects do not build slowly for long. They build quietly, then all at once. A few aphids become a curled pepper plant. A few squash bug eggs become a whole bed of wilting vines. Tomato hornworms are the best lesson. One hornworm can strip a branch bare in about 48 hours. But early in the morning, while the droppings are still under the plant and the chewing is only on one stem, you can find him and end the whole problem with 2 fingers. The walk is not panic. It is learning what normal looks like. Healthy leaves, firm stems, clean tips. Once your eye knows that, trouble stands out before it spreads. And if certain pests keep returning no matter how sharp your eyes are, the old way was not to fight them head-on, but to give them something else to ruin. So you plant a sacrifice. That sounds wasteful until you see it work. Put nasturtiums along the edge of a bed, and aphids will often pile onto those tender stems before they bother your peppers. Sow a strip of radishes near greens, and flea beetles may chew those leaves first. Plant blue Hubbard squash away from your good cucumbers, melons, and summer squash, and squash vine borers can choose that big decoy instead. That is trap cropping, not decoration. Not a pretty border you forget about. A trap crop is bait, planted on purpose, where pests are likely to enter. Most insects do not drop from the sky into the middle of your best row. They come from grass lines, fence lines, weedy edges, and neighboring patches. So you give them their favorite meal before they reach the crop you care about. But here is the part people miss. A trap is still a trap only if you empty it. If the nasturtiums are black with aphids, prune them hard or pull them. If the radishes are riddled with flea beetles, remove them before the beetles move on. If the Hubbard vine is loaded with eggs, deal with it before that nursery becomes an army. You are not making the garden insect-free. You are directing traffic. But there are seasons when weather, pressure, or bad timing still tips the balance, and that is when Jack reaches for the only spray that fits the system. That spray is not poison in Jack's garden. It is a warning sign. Crush 4 or 5 garlic cloves with 2 hot peppers. Drop them in a quart of water and let it sit overnight. In the morning, strain it. Then stir in 1 teaspoon of dish soap so it clings to the leaves. Use it where pressure is heavy, not everywhere. The garlic and pepper make the plant taste and smell wrong, so soft feeders and chewers are less eager to keep eating. It does not fix poor soil. It does not replace hand picking. It does not turn a weak garden strong. And that matters, because broad spraying, even with organic insecticides, can knock down ladybugs, lacewings, bees, and tiny wasps, right along with the pests. Then the balance starts over. By now the pattern is clear, but the real villain of the pest problem is not the aphid, the beetle, or the worm. The real villain is the empty garden. Bare dirt between straight rows. One crop running from fence to fence. No dill, no marigold, no clover, no messy corner where good insects can hide. It looks clean, but to a pest, it looks easy. When you plant one long row of cabbage, every cabbage worm in the neighborhood gets a straight road and a full buffet. When the soil is left naked, the plant roots heat, dry, and struggle. When there are no flowers, the tiny wasps and hoverflies have no fuel. When every odd leaf gets sprayed, the helpers disappear with the troublemakers. That is why Jack quit trying to make the place insect-free. He started building confusion, shelter, food, and backup. Compost made the plants tougher. Strong smells hid the crops. Flower strips brought in defenders. Morning walks caught trouble while it was still small. Trap crops took the first bite. The spray only warned pests off where pressure got heavy, not domination. A neighborhood, and in a good neighborhood, pests still show up. They just do not get to run the place. But after all the compost, flowers, predators, and patrols, one pest can still end a plant before the system has a chance to help. Then came the simplest trick in the whole garden. A toilet paper tube. Set it around each transplant like a little chimney. Push it 1 inch into the soil and leave 2 inches standing above ground. That cardboard wall stops cutworms from wrapping around the tender stem and clipping it off in the night. By the time the tube softens and rots away, usually 4 to 6 weeks, the stem has hardened. The danger has passed. Before I did this, I would lose 5, 6, sometimes 8 seedlings every spring. Afterward, almost none. That is the answer. I stopped trying to kill every insect and started protecting the moments that mattered. Build soil. Confuse by scent. Feed predators. Walk daily. Use trap crops. Deter only when needed. Collar the seedlings. Try 1 insectary strip or 1 collar this week. Then tell me in the comments what pest gives you the most trouble. Thanks for watching.